What's going on, Nasteey Nation? It's Nasteey, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about the 10 worst support champions to play in low elo. There's going to be a lot of different aspects that go into why these champions are bad, and I'll do my best job to kind of explain why these are bad picks. If you do want to enjoy the video, though, be sure to leave a thumbs up on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Without further ado, let's get into it. If you're looking for an easy way to earn RP and unlock more skins and champions within League of Legends, then be sure to check out club.gg using the first link in the description to join my club and get started today. This week specifically, if you play in at least 5 challenges, you have a chance to unlock every single KDA skin in the game. So don't miss your opportunity. Be sure to join club.gg using the first link in the description. Thanks guys, enjoy the video. So let's start this list off at number 10, and we'll make our way towards the worst support champions to play in low elo. So at number 10, I have Thresh. So the reason I have Thresh at 10 is because Thresh is actually a really good support champion. He has a lot of playmaking potential. He has a lot of potential to carry games in solo queue. And, you know, when you're in low elo games, you typically want to be playing champions, at least in the support role, that have potential to carry games, because oftentimes your teammates are not going to be the best of players, and you want to be able to have to be able to put the game in your own hands and to be able to carry the game for yourself. The problem with Thresh is he has a very high skill cap. So as a low elo player, chances are you're not a perfect player. You're not going to be able to land a large majority of your abilities. And in order to be a good Thresh player, in order to have an impact in your games while playing Thresh, you need to be able to land your abilities. So even though I do think Thresh is a great pick and a great support champion as a whole, he's not going to be super effective in low elo games, because again, if you're a low elo player, chances are you won't be able to hit too many of your hooks, and without landing your hooks, you're not going to be able to do all that much in your solo queue game. So that's why at number 10 I have Thresh. Probably avoid playing him if you're in a lower elo. Coming in at number 9, I have Pike, and the reason that I have Pike at 9 is for a lot of similar reasons to the reason I had Thresh just before him on the list. Pike is a champion, again, a support champion, that has a lot of carry potential. He has a lot of damage, he has a lot of mobility, he has pick potential, he has team fighting potential, he has an execute. This champion has a lot going for him. The problem again, though, is once again, he has a very high skill cap. So you might see a lot of support champions, a lot of high elo support players playing these support champions and popping off in their higher elo games. And you might think that, okay, I see them playing well, I should probably play these champions as well because I can do the same thing. But it's really just not that simple. These champions have a lot in their kit, and it takes a lot of games to be able to get a good grasp on these champions and play these champions to a very high level. So instead of challenging yourself and trying to play these very high skill cap champions, instead I would recommend, if you're in a lower rank, that you just try to play one of the more simpler champions in the game and kind of just get a grasp for the basics of those champions. That'll give you a better chance of winning these games. Don't challenge yourself with these very high mechanical champions, and that's a problem with both Thresh and, as we're seeing here again, with Pike. His skill cap is simply too high. I would avoid playing Pike if you were in a lower rank. At number 8 on my list, I have Recon, and this is going to stray a little bit away from what we have already mentioned talking about Pike and Thresh. So those champions included having a high skill cap. Recon does have an extremely high skill cap, but the problem with Recon is he is very team reliant. After the nerfs that Recon received, he struggles a lot when it comes to making plays as it is. And when you are able to pull off these engages after the nerfs, considering your R hitbox is very slow, your W is very slow, it's very hard to pull off these engages. And if you are able to somehow get a good engage off, if your team does not immediately follow up, then your engage practically goes to waste. And considering Recon's kit is very focused around his W and his R, if you use that and you don't get immediate follow-up, then you're practically a useless champion after that. You have your E available, you have your auto attacks available, you have your Q available after that, but that's not what that champion is good for, and you won't be able to lend all that much to team fights, and won't be able to lend all that much to your team after your initial engage. So again, this is a champion that if you are going to be able to play well and carry games as this champion, you need to have a team that is willing to play around you and is willing to follow up on your engages, and in low elo, you simply can't rely on your teammates to do that, and that's why Recon is not a great pick for low elo. At number 7, I have Alistar, and I hate to sound like a broken record here, but we're once again going to have to kind of repeat ourselves here. Alistar is bad in low elo for the exact same reason that Recon is, but he's actually a little bit worse. So the main reason, again, is because Alistar is an engaged champion. You use his WQ combo to engage fights. After that, you're not super useful. You do have your ult to kind of soak up some damage. You have your E to apply a little bit more CC. But as a whole, after you engage, you're not super useful. That's what you pick Alistar for. You pick Alistar to engage and have that kind of utility for your team and have that option for your team. once you do that, though, you're useful. And if your teammates are not following up on your engage, then picking Alistar and low elo is not going to be all that helpful. The reason that Alistar is even worse than Recon, though, is because after you engage as Alistar, it's going to be very difficult to survive. You do have your ult to kind of soak up some more damage, but you don't have a lot of mobility after you engage. So once you engage, you are stuck there. If you engage and your team doesn't follow up, you are probably going to die instantly. With Recon, it was a little bit easier because you engage, but you still have your E to get out, and you have that extra mobility and that dash to kind of get out of these sticky situations. It's not that simple as Alistar. You're going to have more trouble getting out of these fights, and that's why Alistar is a little bit higher up on this list, and a little bit of a worse pick when it comes to picking a champion, as a support champion that is, in lower ranks. So we're halfway through the list now, and at number 5, we have Soraka. The reason that Soraka is not a good champion in lower ranks is because, again, she's very team reliant, but it's kind of a combination of that and the fact that lower elo players don't typically know how to play Soraka. Low elo players typically look at Soraka and they see Soraka as a heal bot. They think Soraka is just a champion that kind of stays in the back line, presses W on her carries, and tries to keep her carries alive. But that is not exactly correct. If you look at some higher ranked players, and there's not a lot of higher ranked players that do play Soraka, but if you do look at these players, the very few of those players that they are, you'll notice that they play Soraka very differently. They play their Soraka very aggressively. They are taking Scorch, they are taking Airy, and they're poking down the enemy laners in lane. They're using their Q aggressively. They're landing their E aggressively, and they're landing the full duration of their E to get that stun in place. These higher elo players are playing Soraka. They have a bit of a skill gap, and they're playing Soraka to an entirely different level. And that's what makes Soraka a decent pick, at least. Not a great pick, but a decent pick in higher ranks. In comparison to something in lower ranks where you're seeing these players kind of just sit back, pressing W, and just hoping that if they heal their teammates and keep them alive, that their teammates will be able to carry. And again, in low elo ranks, that's not going to happen. So as I've already mentioned a few times, when it comes to lower ranks, the best support champions are going to be the ones that typically are simple, but also have some playmaking potential and some carry potential. At number 6, I have Lulu because she doesn't have any of that. Lulu doesn't have a ton of damage. She doesn't have playmaking potential. Lulu just kind of has a lot of utility. She just applies shields and slows and polymorphs and stuff like that. She doesn't lend all that much to the team. In order to have a good Lulu composition, in order for Lulu to have an impact on a team, you kind of just have to have an ADC get really far ahead, and then you just play around that ADC and apply these buffs and these steroids to your ADC and hope that your ADC carries. And again, in low elo, you don't want to play to that win condition. And another reason that Lulu is, a little bit worse than Soraka is because Lulu has a bit of a higher skill gap and a bit of it's just really hard to master Lulu is what I'm saying here. Because there are different ways that you can use Lulu and use her abilities. There's 2 different ways. You can either use your abilities on your allies or on your enemies. There's just a lot more to take into account. And because of that, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to get a good grasp on how to play Lulu and how to perfect Lulu. And that's why, again, Lulu is not going to be a great pick in your low elo games. Taking the 3rd spot on this list is going to be Bard. So Bard is just kind of a bad champion as a whole. Bard has never really been one of the top dominating support champions in the game. In high elo, in low elo, in middle ranged elo, Bard has never really had a good spot. And the reason he's specifically bad in lower ranks is because he's very difficult to play. He has initiation and engage, but if people don't follow up, then it was pointless. It goes, to no use. His W is not all that effective. People don't typically know how to use his magical journeys all that well. People don't know how to utilize his roaming aspect of his gameplay all that much. So as a whole, there's just all these different aspects of Bard that as a whole don't make him a great champion. And because they're kind of difficult to get a grasp of and difficult to master as a whole, it makes it even more difficult for lower elo players to pull off. And that's why, I'm not going to go too into it, but as a whole, that kind of sums it up. That's why Bard is not a great champion for low elo. Alright, looks like I misspoke earlier. We're now getting into the top 3 picks. But nonetheless, here we go. The number 3 pick on my list is going to be Braum. Braum is another champion that is just really bad in solo queue. Braum is not a good solo queue champion. If you're looking to climb whatsoever, no matter what rank, Braum is not going to be the pick that you want to be picking. Braum is very team reliant. He doesn't have hard engage. He kind of just provides a shield and a slow and some resistance buffs and stuff like that. And as a whole, he doesn't have a lot of carry potential. And if you were to have carry potential, there's certain situations that Braum can have carry potential if you are able to synergize well with an ADC and kind of pop off with your ADC. But aside from that, Braum doesn't have solo potential. If you are going to carry a game as Braum, you need somebody else with you. You need synergy. You need a good ADC. And that's another reason that Braum just is not going to work in solo queue as a whole, and specifically in low elo, Braum is not a good pick. At number 2, the second worst support pick that I have on my list as far as picking these champions in low elo is going to be Taric. Taric is a champion that just provides a lot of little things. He's not going to, pop out and have these, outstanding mechanics. He doesn't have great engage. He doesn't have pick potential. He doesn't have, this ability to just save his teammates out of thin air. He just provides a lot of little things. A very small a very small stun rather. He provides a small shield, a small heal. His ultimate is probably the best part about his kit, but because there's that, little channel that there is before it actually starts up, it's not all that impactful. It can be impactful from time to time if you're able to use it super well. But as a whole, he just doesn't provide a lot for a team. And I know there's probably some Taric players out there that will disagree because Taric has been, a little bit popular, or at least a little bit more popular than some of these other champions, like Braum and solo queue. But as a whole, Taric just doesn't provide all that much. And if you were to play Taric to a high level, it wouldn't pay off all that much. And you're better off playing something that has more carry potential in low elo. And finally, the number 1 spot on my list, the worst support champion for low elo, is going to be Tahm Kench. Tahm Kench has been, very similar to Braum. Tahm Kench has been a champion for a very long time. That is just terrible for solo queue. He has very little carry potential. He has very little that he can offer for a team. Tahm Kench has always been, ever since his release, has been a good champion in competitive matches, but has never really seen the light of day in solo queue. I believe he has a 46% win rate in solo queue at the moment. One of the worst champions in the game, one of the worst win rates in the entire game. Not even just support, just out of the entire game. He doesn't offer all that much in solo queue. He can be used to a certain extent in competitive games to kind of keep these ADCs alive and devour them in the middle of team fights and stuff like that. His ult can be used for, movement around the map and setting up objectives and getting your team from one place to another really fast and, trying to sneak these barons and stuff like that. But as a whole, in a solo queue environment where you don't have these voice comms, you don't have this synergy all the time, it's just a really bad pick. And I think that this was a no-brainer for me. Tahm Kench, by far, the worst support champion in the game when it comes to playing these champions in low elo. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, that is going to wrap up this video. I made a few mistakes along the way commentating, but I hope you were able to enjoy it nonetheless. Be sure if you did go on to enjoy it, that you leave a like on the video and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Like I said, though, that is going to do it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
I could do this all day, I could do this all night, all month, all year, for my whole entire life. Who got a home, but seen to live on the road, looking like a black gypsy in a caravan.